Hello, everybody. A very warm welcome to all of you who have joined us today in this event from around the globe. I am Dr. Moshiki Kaur. I'm the chair of the IEEE Kolkata section site group and chair of the Electron Devices Society Kolkata chapter. I shall be your host for today. The IEEE Humanitarian Activities Committee Disaster Management track is what we are here to attend. It is a part of the IEEE Site Week celebration, and we shall discuss the past, present, and potential future roles of IEEE members in tackling disasters. Our keynote address will be delivered by Dr. Moshe Kam, our 2011 IEEE president, who will tell us how to unleash the creativity and imaginativeness of engineering students to fight climate change. So we have with us Mr. Sampath Kumar Veera Raghavan, 2021 Humanitarian Activities Committee Chair. He spearheads the global strategy and portfolio of sustainable development and humanitarian engineering programs to deliver impactful programs at grassroots. He was the 2019-2020 IEEE Site Chair. He's the founder and president of the Brahman, a humanitarian program delivering next generation social innovations to achieve sustainable development goals. I will request him to kindly address our audience regarding our track. Over to you, Sampath.
Thank you, Dr. Moshiki Kaur. And again, I'm super thrilled today to have both Dr. Raja and Dr. Moshikom on the same stage. This has been a phenomenal journey, but I've been given 20 minutes, so I really wanted to make best use of it. So my goal today is to act at a role of Santa Claus. The first 10 minutes, I'm going to primarily focus on giving a 360-degree view about HAC and site. And then we also will be focusing on why we are even focusing on the disaster management track. And then we'll be looking into some of the key highlights. And then I wanted to open the floor basically like what kind of opportunities for participants or attendants who are attending this session today across the world that you could be part of, the various portfolio of programs what we offer from HAC. So with that brief note, let me quickly go ahead and share the slides here. Awesome. Okay, fantastic. As Dr. Kaur introduced, it's been a tremendous, honor to be the, global chair for the IEEE Humanitarian Activity in 2021, and also delighted to continue it in 2022. Why we are here today, right? I mean, this is a site week. We'll talk about it a little bit first, right? I think the Site Week was, we established Site Week in 2019 so that we can provide a global platform to bring together, all our volunteers and showcase the impactful work done by them, right? In a nutshell, this is a celebration of the journey and the impactful done by our volunteers to the globe. And, HAC and Site as a program, I think the heart of the program is the members. Without you, right, the success and the growth of the program, the story does not complete there. So today primarily we are going to look into, specifically in this track, we are going to look into about DM and the amazing work done by Dr. Raja and his team. And in fact, last year, the seeds for expanding our horizons and providing more complementary avenue for IEEE members in the sustainable development space and the related avenues we started exploring. And Dr. Raja and along with amazing set of volunteers, they started looking into these avenues. And this year we constituted a working group so that we can make more progress on that and come back with potential avenues where we could educate, train our members in the disaster management response area. So with that brief note, let's quickly look into, I'm not going to get into details of the introduction, but I'm going to give a 360-degree of, for some of the members, if they are new to IEEE or if they're new to learn about HAC, just want to give them a 360-degree view here. So IEEE Humanitarian Activity Committee, we are a global committee. We offer a portfolio of global programs, and our mandate is to inspire, connect, engage IEEE members to the world so that you can put your technical skills into action, for social good, actually, I would say. And there are four major strategic focus area which HAC, as a program we invest in. The first one is raising awareness, raising awareness about among 400,000 IEEE members, so that you could leverage your technical skills and see how you could actually transform some of the challenges faced by your local community into potential technological innovations actually, right? Second, we provide training actually. We provide training so that if you have a passion and you wanted to participate and contribute to the greater purpose of advancing technology for the benefit of humanity, we wanted to provide resources to make sure you can upskill your talent in those areas, and also provide you with opportunities where you could actually apply it back, those skills. And thirdly, we provide project funding program where you work with the local community, you understand the needs, and you come back with the technological solutions. We provide up to $5,000 most recently in the COVID call fair. And of course, this has been a very, very record breaking journey for us, especially in the last 3-4 years. We have expanded our horizons, we have come back with more member engagement opportunities and impactful, which is well demonstrated in the kind of growth what we'll be seeing shortly, hack as a program. Now, why we are doing all this thing, right? I mean, we really wanted to make IEEE a world leader in the sustainable development space, and we would like to do that by fostering opportunities, empowering our members, and strengthening our collaborations, both within the realm of IEEE and also global organizations. So that we could actually create a global community which can then act as a one voice to build a peace and prosperous future for everyone. So with that brief note, one of the most popular program, as you all know, offered by HAC is, a site membership, site program, which is a feet on the ground initiative. As rightly pointed out, there are several key players here who played a very vital role, in institutionalizing site as a program, including, Dr. Moshe, Raja, and many other volunteers to the globe. Really, really grateful, because site also, we are celebrating the 10th anniversary this year, as part of this journey. And you can see here, we have about close to 22,000 members. We are nearing that landmark, in about where our members are spread around in 123 countries. I remember 3 years back, we had about 4,000 site members when I started over as a site chair. And we rolled out many member engagement opportunities, which helped us to achieve 10,000 milestone in 2019 and about 15,000 in 2020. And now here, we are growing at a pace of about 300 to 400% relative to 2019, I would say. And 63% basically our members are students. So no question, right? I mean, definitely this programs provides a greater opportunity to nurture the next generation of leaders actually, right? Not only it provides that, but it also provides very, very important opportunities to train our students and young professionals and get them ready basically to be successful both in their career and provide them out of the classroom experience for them, right? And as you can see here, from 118 to 200, nearly we have doubled down in the last 3 years. We have now more than 200 site groups spread across 53 countries. So huge kudos to all the volunteers and members who are contributing to this larger mission of HAC actually, right? And this is exactly where we wanted to truly have a global presence and be the catalyst of change in the local community. A brief note here, there are 6 major benefits. If you are not a site member today, make sure that you can freely avail that membership. It's free for IEEE members, and also you don't need to be necessarily an IEEE member to avail the site membership. So 6 major benefits you will avail. One, as I said earlier, you will have project funding, you have training opportunities, and you have this global network of site volunteers which you could collaborate, network with, and find novel opportunities for to innovate. And most importantly, at a personal level, it provides a greater sense of satisfaction, to be part of such a journey and bring in positive changes in the living conditions of marginalized community in your own backyard. So with that brief note about site, I wanted to actually call out about Site Week. I mean, we spoke about the Site Week, and this is the 3rd edition, right? I mean, there are a few key highlights I wanted to talk about here for less than a minute, and then I would like to focus more on the disaster management track and setting the stage here, why we are here, right? So this year specifically has been very challenging because many of the as a global community, we were still recovering from the effects of pandemic, and there were a lot of challenges actually. So we took some audacious goal this year, saying that we wanted to launch a portfolio of strategic programs which will empower our members and deliver some impactful, results throughout the globe. Let's see what we have achieved so far. I'm very, very excited to see these results here, right? We have received close to 385 projects from 45 countries. This is the record number of, proposals in the history of HAC, what we have received so far. So huge kudos to all the members, all the partners who have been closely working with us on the ground. Second, this year we also become very strategic that, not only that we roll out our own call for projects, but we also partnered with regions and societies because we thought that partnership is the key to truly integrate sustainable development programs within the realm of IEEE. So more than close to 30 plus partnership engagements were done within the landscape of IEEE, covering the breadth and width of IEEE, including MGA, TAB, EAB, standards, foundation, you name it. We closely partnered with them. So this is very, very important because through these programs, not only we increase our awareness, we also provide complementary avenues to empower our members. And that is well reflected by the growth in site membership, right? We now have close to 22,000, even though the pandemic has become a constraint to many other programs, we actually leverage the opportunity and transform that to an opportunity of growth and innovation for HAC as a program. And not only that, we also established a stronger partnership, outside of IEEE. Specifically, we worked with several UN agencies, and we kind of started the, engagement with them. And HAC this year specifically rolled out, a greater engagement with UN agencies in programs like GSTIC, STA forums, UN General Assembly 76 celebrations, and many other programs. So what all this indicate is that I think one of the mandate for us is to actually make, to create a global community to bring together partners both within the landscape of IEEE and beyond. That is what I think this has been a terrific journey this year, and this is possible because of the purely by the participation of our members like you all. So huge kudos to you all, all the members and site leaders who are doing a phenomenal job at the grassroots level. And also we didn't stop there. We also wanted to provide some strategic initiatives, right, so that we are prepared for the future to build a better and solid future. So in that sense, we launched the first ever HAC Global Summit, which brought together world leaders like ITU general secretaries and many world leaders like Dr. Windsor, father of internet. We got the minister from Costa Rica. Many world leaders joined this program and demonstrated that why it is impactful as a one voice to act together, especially in the time of pandemic, so that we can build a resilient community. And that's where I think that from the strategic standpoint, we thought we looked for to expand our horizons. That's where the disaster management efforts comes into play. Huge kudos to this team led by Dr. Amarnath Raja and all the volunteers. I know this team has done a phenomenal job here, looking through how can we provide additional avenues to educate and train our members. So with that note, you will read more about the annual report which will be published. But I just want to take this moment to thank all the members and the committee throughout the world for helping us to deliver a record-breaking growth this year. So with that brief note, 10 seconds on this slide, why technologies needs to be involved in sustainable development or disaster management, right? Let's talk about that, right? The landscape of sustainable development and disaster management provides a huge opportunity for technologies to innovate. Foundationally, if you look through this interconnection here, the need drives the innovation, right? And of course, hack and site programs, the community needs that drive those projects, the basis of those projects, right? And similarly, we were looking into, what happens, what are the factors which can actually impact or contribute or influence the development space, specifically in the sustainable innovation space, right? And if you look there, right, disaster management is a very key component there, right? It's a key factor there, because when a disaster strikes, it's not only like impacts the livelihood of the local community, but it also have a social and economic impact, which in turn influences this the sustainable development aspect of the local community. So that's why it's very important as a technologist, we need to be involved, specifically in this, in this track, because it not only provides, an opportunity for you to innovate, but it also provides you a lot more avenue for you to collaborate and then deliver solution which actually matters most to your local neighborhood, actually, and what not. You will also, demonstrate this as a good case studies to inspire next generation of students to take up engineering as a, as an attractive path, in terms of their career and aspirations. Now, let's talk about HAC here, specifically why we started investing this in the last, like 18 to 19 months, right? So primarily, if you look through it, right, I mean, we always provide opportunities for our members to work with local communities and understand their needs and come back, right? But it's also important we look at the universal challenges. So if you look through it, the natural calamities like earthquakes or cyclones or floods or landslides or forest fires, right? It's been frequent across the globe, right? In addition to that, we also have the COVID pandemic, right? So what this actually exposed us is this events not only directly impacts the economic and social development of the vulnerable communities, but these also are truly interconnected, in achieving the larger SDG goals actually, right? So for example, if forest fires or a flood completely, impacts a local community, basically like not only it puts at the risk of, pushing the marginalized community into extreme poverty and also create additional risks like, food, access to food security and other resources like clean water and so forth. All these factors are truly interconnected, right? So what we need is then an integrated approach. Not only we provide avenues to engage our members in sustainable development, but we also prepare them with the right skills and opportunities for partnership so that they are well prepared to handle the disaster management events. So that's why it's important to familiarize our members, like IEEE site members, specifically, so that they're well aware of their surroundings and provide insights into disaster risk reduction and, prepare them to be ready for measures, emergency reliefs, and long-term recovery. Now, the key focus for us is to actually provide this awareness and also offer educational programs so that we can train our member in disaster management and potentially provide them the knowledge and the skills to partner with existing programs, specifically like MOVE, which has been doing terrific job over the years in this space, so that we can join hands and provide a win-win complementary avenue to member training and engagement and empowerment. So in a nutshell, I'm super proud of this team, the HAC, working group, which is trying to create an ecosystem so that we can build a resilient community by empowering our members with necessary skills and partnership. And, to summarize, these opportunities, I truly believe, will provide a new line of avenue to train and also provide the skill development. And in nutshell, create a huge network of locally available technologists who is well prepared to partner with local agencies to prevent and mitigate social, economic, and psychological effects of natural hazards in the local community. So that is why we wanted HAC as a program. We wanted to launch this disaster management efforts, this year, and we would like to, invest on this. So with that brief note, you will hear amazing, keynote session from Dr. Moshe Kam, and we also have two interesting, panel tomorrow. One, you will see like how our members have involved in tsunami relief, earthquake, and cyclones and whatnot, And then second set of, session, you will hear about how technologies, what kind of, best-in-class technology is available so that you could leverage to address these challenges. Now let's talk about Site Week. Here, as you can see here, in 2019, we institutionalized Site Week. And again, the goal here is we wanted to provide, an amazing opportunity for our members so that they could, showcase their, their impactful work and increase their awareness in general about how they can put the skills into action. And here you can see the more about the overall structure of the Site Week this year. And you can specifically see that, we have plenty of novel and very interesting programs. We are kickstarting with the disaster management track, and we also have workshops organized on project management and also more, panels on IEEE experiences in the disaster management space. And of course, on Friday, we also have a fireside chat with the site and hack chat. So definitely, I will encourage you all to participate in these events. And again, as a site group, you could also contribute. You can organize virtual events like the one what we have said here. And you could, join us by organizing these programs here. So with that brief note, if you're not a site, member, make sure you can join, take a site membership and join our programs. And also, like if you're an organization, there's plenty of opportunity for you to join hands with us so that you could actually participate and scale up our impact. So with that brief note, these are some examples how we have partnered with with global organizations this year, and I'm pretty confident that this disaster management track will also open up a lot more opportunity for the members and also at a global scale for us. Again, some of the impact numbers here to see the kind of tremendous impact what we are making at a local level. 30,000 members received PPE last year to the effects of HAC, and about 1,000 individuals in Africa were trained to make locally sourced sanitizers and other PPE efforts. And more than 100 local partnerships. So these are tremendous impacts which are delivered by the pure contributions of members like you. So huge kudos to the members here. And again, you can learn more about our programs from hack.ieee.org and site.ieee.org. So with that brief note and, again about Site Week and, about disaster management track, I again congratulate the team led by Dr. Amarnath Raja for spearheading these efforts for HAC. And I wish everyone a very, very warm and, prosperous Site Week this week. So do share the details with us. And again, I welcome once again 2011 past President Dr. Moshe Kom to deliver his keynote address as part of this important inaugural session. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Sampath. That was really enlightening. And I wish to say one thing here. The amount of progress that has been made even during this pandemic period only goes on to prove how HAC has gone on to convert the roadblocks into building blocks. So thank you for all that effort from your side. And now we'll go on to our keynote address. So our keynote address will be given by Dr. Moshe Kam. He will speak to us about how to unleash the creativity and imaginativeness of engineering students to fight climate change. I'll give a brief introduction to Sir. Dr. Moshe Kam is an engineering educator, currently serving as the Dean of the Newark College of Engineering at the New Jersey Institute of Technology. In 2011, he served concurrently as the 49th President and CEO of IEEE. He also served as a member of the Board of Directors of EBIT and United Engineering Foundation. As IEEE President 2011, he brought in far-reaching changes in IEEE, including starting off HAC and SITE. Earlier, Dr. Moshe Kam was the IEEE Vice President for Educational Activities. During his tenure, IEEE expanded greatly its activities in pre-university engineering education, EPICS, Tri-Engineering, and Teacher in Service Program, or popularly known as TISP, which trains IEEE volunteers to work with pre-university teachers in order to integrate engineering and engineering design in the pre-university curriculum. Dr. Moshe Kam is a fellow of IEEE and has received the C. Holmes MacDonald Outstanding Teaching Award and also has been honored with the IEEE Harridan Pratt Award for original and high impact contributions to IEEE's educational activities and expanding IEEE's global reach. Waiting to listen to you, sir. Over to you. For all the attendees, please do post your queries in the chat box. Over to you, sir.
Good. Thank you very much for this very generous introduction. And my thanks to you, Dr. Museki Kar, to Dr. Amarnath Raja, and to Mr. Virara Havan for inviting me to be with you today in this occasion of celebration of IEEE site. Congratulations to the volunteers who actually carry IEEE work in this area, both in terms of the intellectual investment and also in terms of the time and resources. So we are going to talk today about education. We are going to talk today about students and about climate change. I'm talking to you today from, just to put things in the correct geographical context, I'm talking to you from outside of Newark. You can see New York just across the bay. And I am in as was indicated, I am in the New Jersey Institute of Technology, which has this logo here of about 100 years. In fact, it's already 102 years of the Newark College of Engineering. And if you want to remember us by one thing that we have done over the years, then this one thing is the knee replacement. The knee replacement, a surgery that millions are undergoing every year, has its origin in work that was done in our universities, in our university in the 70s. So the reason I got into discussion of climate change in the context of education is that many years ago in the 1990s, the United States National Science Foundation gave some support to groups that try to develop engineering curriculum around the theme. So you go to school as an engineering student, and all your classes, in addition to their variety, also have a common theme in some sense, be that energy. One of the coalition that was created there was design. One of them, interestingly enough, in the Detroit area in the United States, was manufacturing engineering for the automobile industry. And I was thinking what it will look today if we created a curriculum which is actually motivated and centered at climate change. And we are taking some steps at NJIT towards doing that. We are teaching some tracks, and I'm going to show you what we are doing and discuss the challenges and what we have learned from doing that. So we'll talk about global warming and climate change, and I'll show you some examples of how we teach students about these matters. We will discuss how to instill in them critical analysis of simplistic solutions. I'll show you some exercises for first year and maybe more advanced students. We'll talk about climate change denialism and misinformation, and hopefully we get to some conclusions. So we know what we are talking about here, but this is the definition that comes from the United Nations. We are talking about long-term shifts in temperatures and weather patterns, and they may be natural, such as through variations in the solar cycle. This is well documented, but we also know that since the 1800s, human activities have been the main driver of climate change, and we say that we know this took a long time for us to understand and to get ourselves convinced of. And the way that we are doing that, the way that we drive climate change, is by burning fossil fuels like coal, oil and gas, and other activities. And this is related to the generation of greenhouse gas emissions, a topic of great interest and importance in the context of climate change. And as this United Nations definition says, it acts like a blanket wrapped around the Earth, trapping the sun's heat and raising temperatures. And I want to show you something from Popular Mechanics. This is an article, as you can imagine from the style. This is a bit old, and it says, well, the furnaces of the world are now burning about 2,000 million tons of coals a year. When this is burned, uniting with oxygen, it adds about 7,000 million tons of carbon dioxide to the atmosphere yearly. This tends to make the air a more effective blanket for the Earth. Blanket, again, mentioned here, and to raise the temperature. The effect may be considerable in a few centuries. When did they write that? In 1912. So we have known about this for a while, but we are much more alarmed about it nowadays for obvious reasons. And these are some slides that are taken from a class that we gave on the topic. We explain the layer of gases that surrounds the Earth. We explain the traces of carbon dioxide and other gaseous molecules. We explain what greenhouse gases are and indicate that the primary ones are water vapors, CO2, methane, nitrous oxide, and ozone. But there is also the need to put things in context and let our students know and let ourselves remember that without greenhouse gases, we will not be here, because of the fact that the temperature on Earth would have been about 18 degrees centigrade negative rather than the average of 15 now. And one of the areas that we are highlighting is, first of all, how much is there? In other words, what's the ranking of contributions to the greenhouse effect? And there's like all kinds of compelling videographs and graphics that can help here, that shows how sunlight can be, in addition to being reflected, being trapped. But it is also important to understand that the thickness of the atmosphere and the concentration of the gases influence the surface temperature. And so there are places like Pluto where there are low levels of greenhouse gases and they are frozen shut, like minus 370 degrees Fahrenheit on Pluto and minus 300 degrees Fahrenheit on Mars. And then on the other hand, Venus has an atmosphere which is 96.5 carbon dioxide and is at 855 Fahrenheit. So observations like these, knowledge of this kind, gives us an opportunity to train our students, to send our students to the literature. It's a little bit too ambitious to ask them to actually do these calculations, but at least you can ask them to go to the literature and show how it was calculated there, to identify the analytical and computational tools, to identify, and this is important in this discussion from beginning to end, what are your assumptions and what approximations you make. And that means that we are taking this topic as a lever in order to teach quite a few other things: properties of gases, characteristic of the planets, mathematical modeling, and of course, most importantly, literature search. So I indicated there is a good number of nice graphics to help here. Going back to popular mechanics of 1912, we are also highlighting the fact that the greenhouse effect was studied since the 1800s, and most of the names here are not very well known to our students. By the name of Fourier, of course, is, and it's interesting to indicate the fact that he was part of the, in fact, one of the first, possibly the first, to identify greenhouse gases. And then we send our students to actually study the history of identifying the greenhouse effect until the more definitive and integrated work by Callender in the 1930s. Here is an important part, and by the way, we always trace the way that we work at NJIT. We ask students after every class to let us know what's new, what they didn't know before. And I can tell you that they knew close to nothing of where greenhouse gases are coming from. This is always a topic that's the first time that they hear about it from us. That is where it's coming from in terms of energy, industry, transport, buildings, agriculture, and land use. And I think that it opens everybody's eyes into the fact that this is very close to home. This is not some abstract matter. And now this group is about disasters, right? So disasters and near disasters and deteriorating towards calamities is, of course, an area that we are very concerned about in the context of global warming and climate change. And so the way that we are dealing with this is that we are usually selecting one disaster, and we go very deep. And the one disaster that we select in our classes is usually one of the most recent ones, and if possible, close to home. And the last one that we have selected was in February of this year. This was the winter storm in the state of Texas, and in fact, the whole of the United States. I'll show you some of the slides from the class that we have presented about this, just to highlight the points that we are looking at. So we described the winter storm, but we also used the opportunity to teach a little bit about climate and to teach a little bit about meteorology by explaining how such storms gather, by teaching the students a bit about how the jet stream influences weather. And then we discussed the impact. And in the area of impact, it was important to us that we go beyond what like the obvious. Of course, we know that there are blackouts, But and we know that there were problems with drinking waters and road, etc. But we wanted to indicate how these large-scale systems are interconnected, and how, in the context of COVID, the fact that we had this storm had an effect of vaccination efforts, and on the fact that, for example, New York City ran out of COVID-19 vaccine on account of that storm. Here is an article from the New York Times that we read together. The article explains that climate change brings more frequent and intense storm, floods, heat wave, wildfires, and other extreme events. And this is a message which is important to convey. And here you learn it actually from the newspaper. And the fact that there is a domino effect, breakdowns, and how to predict ways by which one sector or one failure affects the other, and also indicate that to our students who are the ones who will build this nation's infrastructure, how dire is the situation that our infrastructure was built without taking into account some of the trends that we see now. And of course, we indicate what the aftermath was. We analyzed it in terms, and this is important because in events like this one, for example, in this particular storm, there is a lot of misinformation and a lot of politicking and a lot of denialism. In this particular case, it was important to explain where the sources for Texas power were coming from: natural gas, coal, wind, nuclear, and solar. And by the way, the fact that you see the solar here, I'm sure that you immediately understand that this is the cycle of day and night. But you can see that natural gas was the one that had the biggest hit during the storm, and it's also the state's top source of electricity. I'll come back to it in a moment. We also explain why it was a cascading failure, why one of these systems started being under stress, and maybe it lose a little bit of its capability, and it kind of escalates and create other activities that that increase the loss to blackouts, and part of it is also economic. Some of the operators decided that they cannot make enough money in this situation and decided to quit. Some of them decided to quit and try to come back, and then the temperatures were too low for them to restart their machinery. All this is interesting and important to teach our students. As the demand grows, the supply goes down. The result is a disaster. We show them what is the worst case plan of Texas in terms of this is what you believe is your absolute minimum. This is the worst case. This is the day before the storm, and this is during the storm. And of course, you are in a situation which is untenable. And then there is the blame game. Those of you who remember this particular storm may remember that the governor started saying, well, it is the wind, it is the solar, and it wasn't. It was part of a political discussion. It gives us an opportunity to tell students how the power grid looks in this country, and the unique place of Texas in it, and also describe to our students the situation of power reserves. And as you can see here, these are the desired, the light blue, and the actual. And on the eve of this particular storm, the desired was 14, the actual was 9, which was the smallest of all the other power systems in the United States. And so elements of this event are bringing together many aspects: the weather, climate change, engineering design, practice, and also political ideology and politics and state-federal government relationship and deregulation. So it's an opportunity to take this as a case study, go deep, and cover a variety of issues from basic physics to political maneuvers. And that's what we have done. We let our students study these matters, and we put them in breakout rooms, such that as a future power engineer, what are the lessons that you learn from this particular storm? Or if you're the chief logistics engineer of the supermarket chain Kroger in Texas, what are the lessons that you learn for next time? Now, one other issue, which is of course why we are here as engineers, is what to do. And here is a United Nations cartoon. It tells you save energy at home, walk, bike, or take public transport, all good things. But I think that what such cartoons and other information is missing is the complexity of the situation. And we are interested in explaining to our students that there are multiple causes, that there is a hierarchy of effects, and that there is feedback. When the temperature goes up, it is not that that's it. It starts other processes that in turn either cause the temperature to goes up further, or which is like positive feedback, or they are mitigating it, and this is negative feedback. And this is another example of the complexity which we go over. This comes from Al Gore's An Inconvenience Truth. And then we discuss in some detail the feedback. So we discuss the fact that as the temperature rises, water vapors in the air, in the atmosphere, also increase, which means that the temperature goes further. The fact that cloud feedback causes a lot of infrared radiation to be reflected back to the earth, from the earth to the clouds, back to the earth. The fact that when ice melts due to increased temperature, land or open water takes its place, and its reflectivity is lower than of ice sheets, therefore increasing increasing the temperature. We showed example from the Olympics. Qatar is getting ready to air condition several of its stadiums, and when you calculate what it does in terms of gases that are going to increase temperature, you realize that this is actually going to be quite counterproductive. And then we have an opportunity to discuss reflection from heat from the earth, an opportunity to teach Stefan Boltzmann law, for example, and to discuss how the terrestrial biosphere, how vegetation, how the oceans are absorbing CO2, and this is negative feedback. This is countering the increase of CO2 in the atmosphere. Here is an article that we studied with our students, describe recent pause in the growth rate of atmospheric CO2 due to increased terrestrial carbon uptake. So another area that is useful to talk about is that some engineering decisions sometimes have unintended consequences. For example, this is an article that speaks about food versus fuel. We all know about this idea that instead of using fossil fuel, we'll grow our fuel. And then there are studies that say the diversion of crops could cause more hunger. And students need to understand that when you try to satisfy one performance index, there may be several other performance indices that are affected. And this particular author claimed that the United States, in a misguided effort to reduce its oil insecurity by converting grain into fuel for cars, is generating global food insecurity on a scale never seen before. The article is a little bit exaggerated, but it's a good example of how one action in one area can affect others. I will just, without getting into all the details, one area that we discussed with our students was the very successful attempt to remove certain kind of gases from refrigeration, known as CFCs, chlorofluorocarbons. And this was done in order to reduce the damage to the ozone layer. It was very successful. What we have done, however, was to introduce hydrofluorocarbons, not realizing at the time that these are very, very potent greenhouse gases. And so we trace the history of this. We trace it to the local supermarket because actually supermarket with their refrigeration areas are one of the main source of this kind of gases. And we trace it all the way to the United States that worked very hard in order to replace CFC by HFC, now working to, this is an article that just came out a few days ago. The president submits treaty fighting climate super pollutants for Senate approval. This one, which was written by the Environmental Protection Agency, is all about eliminating these substitute gases. We eliminated, as I told you, CFC. We introduced HFC. Now we are fighting to remove HFC if we only knew. So the question that we need to ask here is, when you hear a suggestion, do that, do this, either on a local level or on a policy level, we need to have analytical engineers asking, are these steps effective? Will they have the right impact? Is there a possibility of counteraction or unintended consequences? I already showed you these. So if we just pause for a minute, then there is a lot that you can do if you decide that the climate change is your theme. You can teach your students about the world, about magnitudes, location, impacts, interrelation, trend, about modeling, about assumptions and hypotheses, how to make estimates and how to assess their accuracy, how to understand interaction between processes, positive and negative feedback, hidden variable, unintended consequences, how to search and read the relevant literature, how to assess the quality of what you're reading, given that there is so much junk out there. And also realize that we don't have all the answers. And in some areas, our knowledge is solid. In some areas, it's very, very tentative. So it's the basics, really, of critical thinking. So I want to show you, I only have a few minutes, some back of the envelope calculations that we tell our students to work on. So for example, we know that the sea level is rising. So my question to you, my students, is what percentage of habitable land in Atlantic City, which is just across from where I am now, will be underwater in 2016, any 2100? And this is an exercise that make our students go into the literature, understand global sea level, understand modeling, study the geography of Hoboken, all good things. And by the way, the answer is, I'm sorry, of Atlantic City. I spoke about, I had Hoboken in my mind. This is actually Atlantic City in southern New Jersey. And the answer, by the way, in case you were wondering, is that in 2016, 50% of Atlantic City is submerged under the current relatively mild assumptions, and in 2100 the whole city doesn't exist anymore. We teach our students about the carbon cycle, about what vegetation can do, about what the ocean do, about what humans do, and about carbon sequestration, about the fact that vegetation in the ocean actually can absorb a lot of CO2. So there are these models, and we spend some time on them, and then we ask the following question: can we plant trees to reverse climate change? Is this a viable thing? And you know that there are these initiatives, for example, to plant 1 trillion trees. So we ask our students the following question: how large is the area that the Earth can sustain in forests? How much we can have in forest? How does this area of forest potentially compare to the forest that we have now? In other words, to what extent we can increase the area of the Earth that is covered by forests? How many trees we need to plant in order to reach this forest cover? How many trees we need to plant in order to limit the increase in global average temperature to 1.5 degree by 2050, which is a global objective. And we can continue how much it costs, how much reflectivity you will see. It's a very good exercise, both for its intrinsic value and for what students learn. And then there is a huge set of other questions for discussion. I'm not going to go over them, but we ask how realistic are your estimates, how long it will take to make a dent in carbon concentrations, how might converting non-forest land to forest compete with food production. We touched upon that. Very interesting and fundamental questions. We read the news with our students. So recently, New York State decided to ban new gas cars and trucks by 2035. Recently, New York City has played with the idea of not allowing most cars to enter Manhattan. And so we ask our students to calculate the impact, estimate what will happen to gas emission and to air quality, tell us how much it costs. Put the economy versus the short-term economy versus the long-term economy. We asked the question, should we all go vegan? In other words, if we all changed our diet and we became vegetarians or vegans, what does this do to global warming? And I'm not going to go over it right now, but I want to tell you that the articles are there, and the articles are somewhat contradictory, and there is a lot to learn about this if you send your students to study it, especially because of the fact that some of the articles that they'll find just calculate how much your emissions will go down, but ignore the fact that you're actually making great changes in food production if large portion of the population is becoming vegan. By the way, the conclusion here is that avoiding meat and dairy is the single biggest way to reduce your impact on Earth, which eventually, if you do the calculation right, is where you are getting. Needless to say, we discussed renewable energy, and we asked students to look at it also critically, because sometimes it is presented in very overly optimistic views in terms of what it takes to create and what the environmental impact is, for example, of wind power. So the challenges to the development of renewable energy are there. And I'm going to just fly, because I only have 1 or 2 minutes left, on more aggressive and risky approaches. And here we ask our students to do modeling and to, in some cases, do projects that create small physical models of how to do it. So these are, for example, models that try to understand what happens when we had volcanic eruptions, which actually block the sun from reaching the Earth to some extent. And what we are asking our students to do is to ask the question, can we build a system that will inject the same kind of sulfate aerosols into the stratosphere? Can we have a system that will spray water, maybe from the oceans, into the atmosphere? Can we have large payloads of sulfur that will go into the stratosphere? Do we have the technology? How about trying to brighten the clouds? How about painting the roofs of all roofs in town white? How about trying to make changes in the ocean, among other things, take seawater into the atmosphere to create artificial clouds? So we ask students to study these and to work on projects. Here is a project of cloud brightening, which you can actually do a small experiment in the lab. Let me go to the last thing on my list here. We need to understand that teaching climate change can run into political resistance because of the fact that there are still political factions and individuals who are in denial. And I can tell you that there was a recent study. For example, what these people do is that they take cherry picking of data. They take short periods that are not in line with the global trend, the blue one here, and they emphasize them instead of the long-term global average temperature change. So there is a lot of denialism. The list here shows you what percentage of the population believes that climate change is caused mostly by humans, and this is the strong blue here, and you can see that even when you get to the country where you have the most people who believe that this is caused by humans, it doesn't even reach 65%. So there is a lot of that, and it's also political. You can see here in the United States, Democrats versus Republicans in terms of the percent that say that addressing climate change is a top priority. And we also have some studies about conservative students who tend not to take classes on climate change if these classes are not mandatory, which is an interesting phenomenon. Okay, so let me tell you what I conclude from all this. And I think that you knew it already, that climate change is a topic worthy of a central role in the engineering curriculum. It's very important in its own right. It provides an opportunity to teach students about geography, ecology, physics, biology, chemistry, and almost every branch of engineering. It develops modeling skills, analytics, computational skills, data collection and evaluation, modeling, visualization, presentation. It puts contemporary events into the classroom. It introduces students to very large-scale system, to complexity, to the role of science in civic affairs, and to the role of law and ethics. It introduced the role of politics, of international agreements, about which we did not speak today, and denialism and junk science, which are part of what we need to deal with. And it allows us to teach engineering in context. So I hope that you find this thing at least mildly amusing. I hope it will motivate you to think about it. And if you are teachers, maybe to start working in this direction. We can always use good modules. We are always willing to share good modules. And with that, I'll thank you again for inviting me. And I don't know if we have time for questions because we are almost at the end of our time, but I'll be very glad to at least try to answer. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Moshekam. That was such a wonderful presentation, a plethora of information about this topic, how the students need to be sensitized and we as citizens need to be aware. And denial is the last thing that should be on our mind, right? Thank you so much. I think we can take a few questions. We have some in the chat box, sir, if you would like to address them. Santosh Kumar ji.
Be read to me because I don't see them.
Yeah, please, sir. I am reading it out to you. One of our attendees, Santosh Kumar ji, asked whether you could please point or suggest a syllabus for first-year engineering students on climate change. Maybe provide a guideline.
So I'll be very glad to communicate with anybody on this because the answer is yes. We are working. In fact, what you have seen here, and I've only shown you a fraction of it, is what we are doing. Okay, and we have been doing it for a couple of years. So we have a lot. We'll be very glad to share. As I said, this is important in its own right, but you can also use it as a vehicle to teach very many other things.
Yes, and he also asked what regulatory requirements are put on IT giants like Google to reduce greenhouse gases.
So I don't know that, that there are regulations that are directly mentioning Google, but increasingly it is understood that the activities of some of these conglomerates have an impact, and increasingly regulations about the way that they do their business will affect the way they operate. When I mentioned, like, I'll give you just one example. A lot of what some of these large corporations do, Google and Amazon, of course, has to do with the cloud, right? And has to do with huge data centers and other apparatus and techniques. and these things are very, very costly in terms of refrigeration. This is just one example, but there is no question that the activities of the most important corporations, given the volume, think about how much transportation Amazon is engaged with, okay, is becoming part of their regulation, but it also becomes part of what these companies are trying to do, because whether or not, no matter how you view them, they are also making some efforts on their own to decrease their footprint. So it should be worked on hand in hand with regulation.
Thank you so much, sir. Amarnath Raja sir asks, if you look at the global situation, are the students sensitized to the global distribution of CO2 source? US has per capita CO2 production of 15.2 tons compared to India, where it is 1.91.
So here is the issue. I told you we are in the habit of sending the students a short questionnaire after every class, and we ask them, "What is it that you learned today? What is it that you didn't know?" So I think that Dr. Raja's question is like 2 steps ahead of what my students know. No, the answer to his question is no. They are not. They do not know that. They are not sensitized to this. It is our job at this stage. I think it's much more important to give them the basic facts. Most of my students wrote that they did